Hello, everyone. We are live. It's a Wednesday afternoon. It's just past 2:30 p.m. And you're watching me, Donny, here on Innovation Fika. Today, with a bit of a croaky, hoarse voice. I'm just out of bed after a week's, I don't know, it was kind of a flu. And I'm in my I'm in my kitchen. That's why you don't see the normal KTH things here. But it's me, Donny Ligonis, live from Stockholm, Sweden. Innovation Fika, 2:30 p.m. every Wednesday afternoon. As you know, I go live here on LinkedIn and on YouTube and lots of other places with an Innovation Fika, which is an innovation coffee break where I get to interview cool people about cool things for a short period of time, 30 minutes, the world's fastest 30 minutes, as some of my guests have described it before. Just getting the microphone set up here as well. You can find all of the recorded content on YouTube. And so you find 83, well, after today, you'll find 84 episodes there. And then all of the written content, since I write almost daily and post almost daily as well. I write daily, I don't post daily, but I post almost daily as well. And you'll find all the written content saved on my Medium page. So if you go to Medium, Donny S. Ligonis, you'll find all of my content there. And if you go to the YouTube page, Innovation Fika, actually on YouTube, you'll find all of the recordings, so 80 plus recordings there now for your later viewing. But today I am speaking to an aspiring writer, author, and student, Timon, and I'm going to let Timon into the studio here. Hello, Timon. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Donny. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Happy to have you on board. And today's episode was it was all about. I know we were talking about storytelling, but it's storytelling with a twist because it's storytelling for good, right?
Exactly.
And just to as I always start all of my shows in the same way by asking my guests, who are you and what do you do? So Timon, just quickly tell us who you are and what you do, and then we'll come into the subject as well.
Yeah, so I'm a student here at KTH. I study sustainable energy engineering. But since a young age, I'm very interested in stories, right? So I read a lot. I started writing in an early age. When I was 18, together with a friend, we self-published a fantasy book, actually. And since a bit more than a year, I'm looking into the research of how we're influenced by stories. And I'm basically thinking about how can this influence be a positive one.
Mm-hmm. So, and when we started talking, I thought it was really interesting because you said that you had been looking into storytelling as a subject and I found that super interesting because I have been interviewing people about storytelling on this show previously, and it's all about the importance of storytelling and tell a story, and that's what the whole sort of startup thing is about, storytelling. But I like the way that you also had it's not just storytelling, use storytelling for something good. But how did you get into that, and how did you start studying the subject of storytelling?
So it started maybe around 2 years ago. I was looking into nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg. I don't know if you heard about it. But he basically said something which led me towards this rabbit hole. And he said that in 75% of the TV programs in the United States, which are presented when most children are watching, the hero either kills somebody or beats them up. And when does that happen? At the climax of the show. So he was basically questioning the representation of violence in American television.
Wait, 75%?
Yeah. So that was the quote was 20 years ago. I can't back that up with statistical information.
Yeah.
But it was ridiculous. So I was like, whoa, what does it do to people, right? And then I was like, I'm interested in science, so I was like, okay, let's have a closer look at that. And it turns out that there's actually a big body of research showing a correlation between violence in media and aggressive behavior and attitudes towards violence. And what matters is the context of the violence, right? It's not violence isn't violence, and there are some factors which lead to more positive attitudes towards violence, which are like if the perpetrators are appealing in a way, or if violence is justified, glorified without consequences, or displayed in a arousing way, like backed up with some music and so on. So it's all about context.
Yeah. But that's fascinating. And I mean, I know we're not going to spend the half an hour talking about how violence in movies and films and TV games affects young people, because then we'll get the whole sort of that crowd riled up
Yeah,
as well. But it is interesting though how it it has to affect us somehow, right? The
yeah.
stories we watch and how they are presented.
Yeah, yeah, actually, and it's much more than violence, right? It's like every topic of our lives, we're somewhat influenced by stories. Stories influence not only our beliefs, but our attitudes, our social skills, our moralistic thinking, our values, and actually whole cultures, right? If you think about cultures, they are basically woven by this web of stories which surround us in a way.
Yeah.
So stories have huge impacts.
Mhm. I'm really sorry for staying on the same topic that you just mentioned, but one of my biggest letdowns, and this is very personal story, so it's got nothing to do with our topic or your subject or anything else. But one of my personal letdowns was when I saw the film Avatar,
Hmm.
because it was this beautiful people that loved nature and they lived in nature and everything was harmony and it was fantastic. And then came the evil people that wanted to kill them and cut down all the trees, and their only solution was to be even more violent back.
Hmm.
As in, yeah, but if you're such a peace-loving people, couldn't the movie have been about how they changed the mentality of everyone to be more peaceful and nature-loving?
Yeah.
No, instead they had to be even more violent back to
Mm.
win. And that was and that sort of it ruined the whole movie for me, because that story didn't sort of ring true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I would like to see more alternatives towards this like common theme of defeating the evil by
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
fighting
but
harder. Yeah.
when you say then that storytelling for good, what's your sort of what do you want to do with the storytelling then? What's your sort of take on it?
Uh, so I think I would like to see more stories which actually increase well-being beyond the experience of the story. Right. So think about what do you think about when you pick a story for entertainment? Right. You probably somehow have a feeling for will I enjoy the story? Will the story taste good in a way? Right. So you're probably concerned about the momentary experience of engaging with the story. Right. But most of the time we don't think about the impact the story has beyond that experience with it. Right. And I would like to see more stories which inspire us to do good, or which somewhat increase our well-being beyond this short experience which we have with them.
Yeah. And how do okay, so if we are say that we are part of this entrepreneurship startup world, which we are,
Mm, mm,
and we've been taught to, storytelling. Everybody's talking about storytelling. Tell a story, get people engaged, and get their passion flowing. Sort of, what do you think then is important for a storyteller to think about?
hmm. I think it's a lot about self-reflection as well for the storytellers. Right. So think about what do you care about? Well, what are your values? How would you like the world maybe to be somewhat different in a way, or is there something which you're deeply concerned about? And then try to express that in a way where it's somewhat useful to people engaging with the story. Right.
Yeah,
So one framing which I find really useful is seeing stories as simulations or simulators. Right. So when we dive into a story, we have this really engaging experience where we might forget everything around us, and we're just in this narrative world, and maybe seeing into the minds and through the eyes of some made up character. Um, and the way we're influenced by stories is different than by arguments. So it's not reason, it's experience what changes us. But what matters, like when we think about seeing stories as a simulation, we can think about what makes a useful simulation, right? And when a pilot goes into a flight simulator, he practices flying in a safe environment. And the idea is that we humans use stories to simulate human experience in a way.
But
yeah.
but you're but you're actually placing a not only a demand but a responsibility in for the storyteller here, because again, I'm saying the world, teaching everybody to tell the story your users want to hear and please them, almost to no consequence of what you tell them. As long as they're happy, everything is good. So there is you're saying that there's a responsibility for the storyteller to also sort of take the consequence of the story they're telling, or what? Where are we? Sort of how much should I? When you're talking about self-reflection, how much should I take responsibility for the story that I am telling?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think storytellers do have a responsibility, right? Because it's in the nature of the art of storytelling that it leaves a mark on the people. So, as a storyteller, you can ask yourself, okay, what kind of influence do I want to have? And I would assume that most storytellers probably want to have a good influence, but I think.
Leaving politicians aside.
Yeah. I mean, or maybe some industries have some agenda, right, in making profit. But I mean, let's assume that the storyteller has some interest in having a positive influence. I think it's also about awareness on the fact that stories leave a trace, right? I'm not sure whether every storyteller thinks beyond this experience with the story. And what that stories might like shape the minds of those engaging with them.
Yeah, and another thing that I know that you talk about, or you think about a lot, is how we represent cause and effect when we present different examples. And what's your opinion about that, and how we use causality?
Yeah. So I think what's useful here is to try to understand why we like stories as humans from an evolutionary perspective, right? And the theory here is that we use stories to acquire contingent or specialized knowledge, which is only true under certain conditions. So in other words, knowledge is really valuable for us humans, and we acquire that knowledge by engaging with stories. So we can see stories in terms of like maybe chains or webs of linked information. And what matters is the context. So we see in the story, we see like patterns of information, maybe some strategies to achieve something. And we learn from what works in the story and what doesn't work in the story. And for a story to be useful, this somewhat needs to be accurate towards what would work in the real world. So if to use that example of violence again, if we would learn from the story that in a certain situation, violence is the best possible solution, then we might, with the best intention, try to use that strategy in the real world, but it might not work in the real world, right? So if cause and effect are misrepresented, that might lead to us updating our mental models in a way where they don't serve us anymore in the real world.
Okay, I'll stick with that one and say, when I watch, because I've been practicing martial arts for 20 plus years. And when I watch movies when they are fighting like for 10 minutes, and it's like sort of one single of those 100 punches would have put the guy down from the start. But then, of course, the movie would have been really boring. Is that an incorrect representation of? I mean, as in, it's not true what happens, or?
Yeah. So it's a bit more difficult than that, right? So stories doesn't need to they don't need to be perfectly realistic. It's about the message they transport or the moral of the story, right? So if one punch is like not very accurate or leads to like, okay, that might have minor consequences, but that might not really harm us in our life.
Yeah,
right? It's more these bigger ideas.
Sorry for getting stuck on the violence again. That was not intentional. It was just the first thing that came to mind. But what else? I mean, how could we actually use this then in a real world situation where we're telling stories, and this whole sort of cause effect thing? How does that sort of come to life in the real situation?
What do you mean by that? So I think the idea might be very useful in um, on the one hand, when you create a story as a storyteller, to somewhat check, okay, would this work in the real world, or what's the value I might transport in the story? What might be the morals of it? Right, to just have a look at this meta level and see where could that lead towards. Or maybe often we're influenced by our own culture, and we just project the themes we basically soaked up without rethinking them.
Yeah.
Right. So having this perspective might already change the way we tell stories in a way, and it can also help as consumers. Right, as consumers, we might be more able to discover patterns in story and see, okay, uh, here I might not want to integrate that into my worldview. But in order to make that decision, we need to be aware of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's super fascinating because it's so easy to it's so easy to say to people, use storytelling. It's the best method ever. Tell a story. Everybody can tell a story. And then we kind of stop there. Some people take it a bit further and they talk about how you build the story, as in how how you actually build like a storyboard, and it's with an end and a middle and a finish and that kind of part. But that's still very sort of instrumental. Still nothing about the content at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is actually moving into the content space and demanding me to reflect on what content am I actually putting into my story, and what consequence do I see that content having.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it's all about. It's about the core of storytelling, right?
Yeah.
What do I want to share? What values do I care about? What do I want to inspire in people? Or we can ask, why do I want to tell a story in the first place? Right? It might give us some insight into what we care about, or what we might find interesting, or or funny, right? We can also a story can also do good by simply be funny in a way, and enrich our kind of hedonistic experience for some time.
So what are some? I mean, what are some? I won't say good examples, but let's do the other one. What are some? Have any bad examples of what not to do?
What not to do? Okay, so don't misrepresent things which lead to ultimately like well-being or suffering. That's a bit maybe abstract, but to give an example, um, uh, if it's like about something which ultimately affects how people feel, or how people are, some behavior, uh, right? Then don't promote a strategy which doesn't work in real life. So don't if something has bad consequences, show the bad consequences. If something has good consequences, show the good consequences.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So um, there was one paper which actually showed a correlation between people reading romantic literature and their attitudes towards safe sex elements, so using condoms basically. And it was a negative correlation. So because in the romantic literature, those elements were somewhat disregarded, the attitudes were more negative towards the use of them. Right. So there was a misrepresentation about what makes like a happy romantic relationship in a way.
Yeah, but that's fascinating because there's a fine line there, because in the story we do want everything to be easy and perfect, and it's a bit like watching a superhero thing, because it just things just are fantastic and it just works and it's like incredible things happening, and that is not true in our everyday lives. So I think in the sort of sense of escapism, we walk a very thin line on and as long as we're talking about a superhero that's flying around, and we know it's not true, we know it does not happen, right?
Yeah.
But when you come closer to reality, and the misrepresentation risks to sort of overlap, I think that could be a riskier part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Stories want to be simpler than reality, right? They need to be
We had actually a question here from a viewer.
Yeah.
What are some quick tips for using stories in marketing? And actually, thank you for asking that question. That is a perfect, because I'm looking at the time here as well. We actually have, it's only a 38-minute coffee break, and we actually always have the guests' top 3 tips. And true to form, today we will leave you with Timon Rezelmann's top 3 tips of working with storytelling for good. And anybody listening, you can also use these tips and mold them into where you are in your context, if it's marketing or selling or what it could be. So tip number 1 then is choose useful topics and not only interesting ones. So what do you mean by that?
Okay, so we as humans are interested in things which gave us an evolutionary edge early on, right? From that perspective. But evolution doesn't maximize for well-being. And what helped us thousands of years ago doesn't necessarily help us today in our society. So we can't rely on the interest to find the topics which are useful. So we need to think about, okay, what topics actually might be beneficial for us in our modern world.
Okay, so not just interesting, but make it useful as well.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Tip number 2, and this is the one we talked about: present correct casual connections.
Exactly.
Not casual.
Causal.
Causal.
Exactly.
Sorry, I mispronounced it. Causal. Casual connections is something completely different. Causal connections.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I said. Okay. We learn from stories by seeing what causes what behavior leads to what consequence, and if we misrepresent that, that might lead us to learn something which don't help us, which doesn't help us. So pay attention to causal connections between like key themes in the story.
That I know that's very abstract and kind of a vague description, but it's actually super, super interesting. We could do a separate talk only on that, and also how people are. I see so many people like quoting everything from surveys to everything, and then they present completely incorrect facts based on something that they've read. And there's no actual connection to. And have you seen the ones that when they make jokes of when people eat more yogurt in South America, the price of diesel goes up in China? Just because there's a
the difference between causation and correlation. Yeah,
exactly. Totally. Anyway, tip number 3: reflect on the morals of your story.
Exactly. So that's like what it's all about, right? What's your goal with telling the story? Do you only want to use it as a mean to an end, or like, yeah, think about what do you want with your story? And if you want to enrich people's lives, then think about what values do you transport in your story, or what do you want to inspire, and think about this like meta level. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and I think though it's becoming a scarcity. It feels like it, at least in this in the world we live in, when it comes to actually seeing beyond your own place and trying to see yourself in the larger context, and actually taking responsibility for a larger context than yourself, which does not have to be self-beneficiary either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it is self-beneficially, right? So if you know, okay, my story enrich some person's life, doesn't that make you feel good, right?
Of course. I mean, in sense, all goals are in a way very sort of personal and self-fulfilling. Even if you say, I only want other people to feel well, it's because you want to feel well because they feel well. So yes, I totally agree on that as well. It's but I think that when it comes to where we are in the world, and I think more people should spend more time reflecting on why they tell stories and to which effect they're trying to tell stories. I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Timon. And by the way, what about the book? The book. You're writing a book about this.
Yeah, that's true. So since
When
a
can we
bit more than
expect
a
that?
year. I can't make an accurate prediction on that. I hope that in a couple of months I have the draft ready, right? And then it's the challenge to find a publisher and everything.
Okay.
So maybe next year at
Well,
some
cool.
point.
Well, let's plan for a preliminary follow-up session next year, sometime maybe summer 2023, when you'll be holding your book as well, saying, "Here's my new book, the one we talked about last year, all about storytelling for good."
I
With
would love that. Yeah.
Timon Rezelmann. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you everybody for watching. And as you all know, next week again, Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Innovation Fika. But today we're saying thank you to Timon and goodbye, everyone. Have a great day.
Well,
Bye for now.
thanks.